Alright guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football podcast. Today we're going to be breaking down week 1, recapping it. There's still 2 games left on the slate, but for the most part, the week is in the books. It was a weird week. Multiple teams played close games. There was numerous FCS over FBS upsets. Number 20 Washington was one of those. 13-7 loss to Montana. A lot of disappointing efforts from a lot of teams, and Washington was one of them. They couldn't run the ball behind that massive, powerful offensive line. None of the receivers really helped Dylan Morris out either. Very disappointing from them. Not really sure what to say about that. But anyways, we're going to be kind of comparing what I said pregame analysis-wise to what actually happened in the game, see how teams fared, see what I got right, see what I got wrong, and how it carries over for the rest of the year. Yeah, we're quickly into week 2. So getting things started, Ohio State and Minnesota. Ohio State, they started good against the run, though. But eventually, that massive offensive line, I'm a fan of the offensive line. It's the biggest in college football, 5 seniors. I feel Ohio State would be up to the task to be able to weather that storm, but over the course of the game, they really weren't. Mo Ibrahim took over. I think he ended the game with almost 170 yards, broke off numerous big runs. Ohio State was getting out-muscled. Minnesota seemed to be the more physical team for the most part of the game. Offensively, C.J. Stroud was rattled early. He was able to deliver late in the second half, though. He was able to get it to his playmakers, and they did work. Wilson, Olave, those guys, Henderson as well. His playmakers did the work, so kind of bailed him out. But C.J. was nice to see him fight some adversity and get through that. Expect a big season from him. His first start, on the road. Not an easy task whatsoever. As expected, though, the Minnesota passing offense struggled once Mo went out with an injury. Hoping he's okay. I think he's okay. I haven't heard anything that indicates otherwise. But the Gopher passing attack, it struggled. It was not able to get going whatsoever. And that wrapped things up for Ohio State, 45-31. A little bit of a scare there, but it was nice to see that offense fight through some adversity, and they were able to capitalize in the end. Moving to UCF and Boise, I felt UCF had the edge in the trenches. I felt like Boise State was undersized in the interior, and UCF was able to take advantage of that. Isaiah Bowser, the Northwestern transfer, he's a bruiser. He put on a clinic, 170 yards on over 30 carries. He had a touchdown. They just could not slow him down whatsoever. Boise State's offense, they started off good early. Bachmeier was able to make some plays, make some good throws. They were up early. But in the second half, they weren't able to do anything. Boise State's only score was a touchdown in the second half. It came off a turnover. It set them up for a short field, and they capitalized on it. But they could not run the ball at all. They had 26 carries for 20 yards. I expected they'd have some issues running the ball because they were not very good at that category last year, but I didn't expect them to be this bad. 20 yards on 26 carries again. It's just not very good. Dylan Gabriel, he had 4 touchdowns over 300 yards. Overall, impressive performance from Gus Malzahn's Knights in the first game of the year. They were able to overcome a 20-point deficit and took care of business at home. The game got started late because of a lightning delay. So it was a long night in Orlando, but UCF was able to win a great game. Boise State, though, it's gonna be tough for them to win their conference. I think. I don't think they're the favorite. Their offense is very one-dimensional, and they stalled out completely in the passing game as well. So Boise State has a lot to work on, but Andy Avalos is certainly up for the task. Looking at some other Thursday night results, Nate Noel and Cameron Peoples ran for 100+ each as they get past the Pirates, 33-19. And then Bailey Zappi from Western Kentucky, 424 yards, 7 touchdowns versus UT Martin. That was a relatively a game stat line that kind of went unnoticed. Not a very tough opponent, but that's still a very impressive stat line. So moving to, and also we had Coastal Carolina, Utah, and Arizona State, 3 other ranked teams in action. They were able to cruise the easy wins. We also had 2 FCS over FBS results. So if you're keeping a tally on that this weekend, there's 2 right there. Moving to the Friday night slate, we'll go ahead and roll the clip on what I said regarding the Virginia Tech and UNC game. It's going to be very tough for UNC, though, to get anything downfield on Jermaine Waller. Dorian Strong was also really good on one-on-one coverage last season. Safety Shamari Connor, he was the team's top tackler last season. He's also a good playmaker back in the back end. Might look to see VT blitz if these guys can hold their own, and Virginia, the Hokies can blitz. It's going to be tough for this UNC offense because I like this secondary. If they can get to the quarterback, it's going to be tough. They don't give up plays downfield, and they could have this passing attacks number. I'm not saying they will, but they certainly could. Especially with they don't have a lot of chemistry built. Howell does with these guys, so interesting matchup to watch. That's going to be the X factor for this game. If VT can hold their own in the back end, then this will be a close contest. So I really seemed like the advantage kind of went to the Virginia Tech secondary. I had a little bit more faith in Howell and his pass catchers to be able to create some separation, but the lack of chemistry ultimately plagued them all night long. Josh Downs made some really good plays. But altogether, the offensive line was also very stagnant as well. They could not run and operate the way they wanted to. They couldn't get RPOs involved. Just their offense, it couldn't do anything. The lack of chemistry for receivers really hurt them. And their offense was just very stale all night long. Howell made a couple of bad throws on 3 interceptions. So he was just kind of fighting for his life out there. His offensive line wasn't great. They couldn't run. Receivers weren't helping him out. Really had his back against the wall. The Tar Heels defense, they adjusted. The run was eating them up. Jalen Holston and Virginia Tech, those guys were having a field day. They were setting up for a field day really on the ground. They ended the game with only 127 yards on 43 carries, but very early in the game, 14 of those points came off them just being able to run the ball very well, and then they were able to finish drives. In the second half, they couldn't do anything. They were able to adjust. Kind of like the Florida State game last year. They gave up a lot of yards on defense. Then the second half, they turned around and shut them out. I've always had optimism for this Virginia Tech offense. Still do, because they have some really good playmakers. Turner, Robinson, I'm a fan of Burmeister. But again, not being able to do anything in the second half is a concern. I don't really think this changes the course of Virginia Tech's season, though, as hosting UNC. It was kind of a trendy upset pick. I favored North Carolina in this one, but wasn't shocked to see Virginia Tech play the way they did at all. Because they still have question marks of their own if they're going to be able to compete in the ACC. Overall, good win for Justin Fuente and this program. Looking at some other results on this slate: Michigan State 38-21 over Northwestern. Expected Michigan State to win this one with ease, but I didn't think Kenneth Walker could run for 260 plus yards, 4 scores. He introduced himself to the Spartan fan base. He scored a lot at Wake Forest. Not shocked to see him doing really well for this offense and uplift them, but that type of production is really staggering. MSU they have some high upside for this season. They're very excited to see what they can do to build off this game. Pretty impressive win, despite Northwestern once again having to rebuild. Charlotte and Duke, one of my favorite games of the weekend. It was a really fun one. I anticipated this would be a great game, and it was. It was a barn burner late in the game, back and forth. Charlotte was able to score with under 40 seconds to go, and that sealed the deal. Kansas, they also picked up their first win since October 2019. Wake Forest and Colorado cruised, while Colorado State, they fell to the game where games were played. There will be timestamps if you'd like to advance further. We'll get things started. Penn State 16, Wisconsin 10. Wisconsin probably should have won this game. Miscues really hurt them. Their defense played exceptionally well. My analysis for this game was pretty spot on, though. I figured the linebackers, especially on the outside, were going to play very well for Wisconsin. They were all game long. They contained the run. Penn State could not do anything. A few coverage busts, though, allowed Jahan Dotson to spring free, and Clifford was able to hit on them, though. The Badgers, they were terrible in the red zone. Execution was just pretty horrendous. They had 3 turnovers, 42 minutes of possession. They dominated this game, held Penn State to 50 rushing yards. Clifford was flustered all game other than those few plays he hit the Dotson. 174 rushing for Wisconsin. Ches Malosi, though, he stepped up, really liked his play. Runs with aggressiveness, nice shifty guy. I think he's going to be a star for Wisconsin, at least what I saw from that one game. Danny Davis also stepped up. He's always had really nice hands, but it was nice to see him. 8 receptions for almost 100 yards. It's nice to see him step up. Graham Mertz, though, he made a lot of he didn't make the plays we expected him to, though, as a downfield passer. 2 interceptions late in the game, really bad throws. Again, he's just kind of got his back against the wall trying to make something happen, but his passing attack altogether, they made some good plays, but for the most part, we expected them to do a little bit more off this play action, and Mertz wasn't able to deliver. We'll see what he can do to build off this performance, though, because late in the game, he was unable to deliver like Wisconsin needed him to. But for Penn State, this is a big win for them. They go on the road to Madison, win a game they probably should have lost. Their defense, that was the real deal, as it was last year. It was a really good defense. They didn't turn the ball over. That was very encouraging, something they did a lot last year on offense. When they don't turn the ball over, they win, and it continues right here. Ellis Brooks, he was phenomenal. Arnold Ebiketie, the Temple transfer, he showcased why he's going to be a big star for Penn State this year. I really like what they have on defense altogether. Very encouraging performance. And then Jaquan Brisker was able to finish things off late in the game. He battled with injury all game long, so the toughness was on display there. Really like this Penn State team. Moving to Oklahoma, Tulane. This was kind of weird. Spencer Rattler's second pass of the year was intercepted. Tulane capitalized off that, and they scored. After that, they had a good drive. The rest of the first half, the Sooners' defense came into its own. They forced fumbles, made good penetration, had good pursuit, and then the offense was able to find some rhythm. There was a different story in the second half, though. Sooners were limited to only 3 points. They couldn't tackle on defense. 21 points. They also had 2 giveaways of their own. Just a very ugly showing in the second half. Michael Pratt had a big game. Just very disappointing to see Oklahoma play like that. They didn't build off their momentum in the second half as they were absolutely throttled. They almost lost this game. They probably should have. If there was more time on the clock, they probably would have lost this game. Their offense couldn't do anything. Very disappointing. I'd like to see them run the ball a little bit better. I'd rather be, more cautious with the football. There's a play that was called back, another interception that was called back on a bogus PI call. Kind of like last year earlier in the year. He wasn't very careful with the football, and it costed this team. It almost did it again here against Tulane. So I still really like this Oklahoma defense. Their defensive front is really impressive. I like what they have. I think they have good depth all around at linebacker as well. But they have to play better. It's as simple as that. Alex Grinch is certainly not going to put up with this type of performance, and they're not going to win a national championship playing defense like that, that's for sure. Moving to Stanford, Kansas State. I was kind of missed the beat on this one. I picked Stanford to score 38 points, and instead they almost got shut out. It's kind of hard to do that. David Shaw decided to go with alternating quarterbacks every 2 drives. That recipe, I wasn't a fan of it, and it didn't work really well at all. Tanner McKee and Jack West both had some good moments, but all around it wasn't pretty. This offense couldn't move. They couldn't run the ball either. 22 carries for 39 yards. Kansas State was the more physical, imposing team all game long on both sides of the trenches. Kansas State wasn't great on offense either, though. They had 2 big plays on their first 2 drives. Deuce Vaughn, or on their 2 scoring drives. Deuce Vaughn, he had 59-yarder, and then Brooks on the first drive, he went 56 yards on a reception. That gave Skylar Thompson a short touchdown run a few plays later. Altogether, though, their offense wasn't great either. They couldn't establish much. They had big plays that really helped them out. That's what allowed them to score 24 points. Both teams have a lot to work on there. I was impressed with the Kansas State defense. Their defensive line really stepped up. Cal Duke, one of those guys. They play Nevada in a couple weeks. It'll be interesting to see what they can do. But Stanford, it was pretty disappointing to see how they couldn't run the ball at all. Their passers couldn't get any mojo going. Just they're getting beat up up front all game long. Their defense did make some nice plays. As noted, Kansas State, they didn't really manufacture much on offense outside of the big plays. Stanford did get a little momentum going in the next week, I guess. They had a nice drive of 75 yards late to avoid the shutout, but overall just very ugly showing. Expected much more for them. Figured this game would probably be a shootout. Instead, it kind of turned into a defensive battle. And so that's that game. 24-7, Kansas State is the final. Miami and Alabama, this really wasn't a contest all game long. 44-13, Alabama ran away with this one. Bryce Young looked really good. Made some good decisions, knew where he wanted to go with the ball. Handled the pressure very well. Bama didn't run the ball as much as I expected, but they still had 500 yards of offense. Miami, again, it wasn't a contest at all. They couldn't run the ball. Bama was very consistent. They were consistently in the backfield. No explosive. They didn't allow any explosive plays. Derek King, that phenomenal playmaker he is, 23 completions for 178 yards. The secondary had them on lock the whole game. I didn't watch this game other than just the first half. The second half, it was, kind of a runaway. Again, the Hurricanes, though, they couldn't run the ball. As expected, we didn't think they'd be able to. And again, no explosive plays from King in the passing attack. And that was the only thing that was going to keep them alive in this game, if they could produce downfield or in the open field. And they just were not able to. Miami turned it over 3 times. Bama had one as well. But altogether, it just wasn't a close game. Miami, they still have a lot of work to do. This was a bad matchup all around for them to begin with. And then it reflects on the final score as they got absolutely blasted. So, Alabama, though, they're one of the only teams that really impressed in week 1. They had no issues at all with this team. They looked really good. Jamison Williams, as expected, stepped up with the Ohio State transfer. I think Alabama's going to be just fine offensively. This team's number 1 for a reason, and they absolutely dismantled Miami. So, pretty much what we expected to happen happened in this game, and that's it on that one. Moving to Iowa and Indiana. As expected, this was a bad matchup for Indiana. Figured that, I love their passing attack, but when you have a very one-dimensional offense with an ailing offensive line and face a secondary like Iowa's, it was just a bad recipe for success. I picked Iowa to win this game by, I think it was 24-14. Figured Indiana's defense would be able to hang in there, and it did, but their offense did them absolutely no favors. I don't think they played a bad game defensively other than, they kind of settled down after that 56-yard touchdown on the opening drive from Goodson. Some nice resilience there. But all around, this is just a bad matchup for their offense. Their defense was consistently backed up. Their offense could not do anything. I don't even know if they crossed the 50-yard line more than for the 2 field goals. I don't think they ever passed it after that. Riley Moss had 2 pick sixes. Penix is a really good quarterback. People will try to knock him for this, but again, it was just a very bad matchup. it was not going to be easy for him to will them in this game. He ended the game with 3 picks, 33-6 Iowa. Iowa's a really good football team, though. I think their offense needs to figure some things out, but this team can certainly compete for a Big Ten title this year. Love what they have in the trenches. Their secondary, as I mentioned, is phenomenal. One of the nation's best. They'll need more out of Spencer Petras, though. And I think this Iowa team has a lot of potential. I think they ran the ball pretty solid against this tough defense. All around, though, Indiana, bad showing for them. But this team has a lot to play for this year. I think when they start figuring some things out in the trenches. For week 1, it was not a good, with their weaknesses, it wasn't a good matchup whatsoever. They can certainly build on those things that they struggle in. But it's going to be hard to when you have to play a team like that week 1. So throughout the year, I'd expect them to get better. But overall, the playoff hopes are done with a loss like this. To Texas and Louisiana Lafayette. I picked Texas to cover this. Louisiana was a trendy upset pick. I picked Texas to win and to cover the 9.5-point spread. Figured their strong running game wasn't going to be too much for Louisiana. I also figured they were going to force the Raging Cajuns' passing attack not to be very effective. It's kind of what happened. USC finished with 282 due to some plays in garbage time, but throughout the game, nothing much was available for them. They also could not run the ball very well. Good showing from Texas in the trenches. That's a really good Louisiana Lafayette offensive line. They were able to slow down Chris Smith. Chris Smith had a touchdown run of 20-something yard, 20, 30 yards or something like that. But other than that, it was a long day for the Raging Cajuns offense. Bijan Robinson, he accounted for 176 and 2 scores. Altogether, the Texas running game, 170 yards, 4 yards per carry. Expected the backs of Robinson and Roschon Johnson to be too much in this game. And that's what happened. They were able to set up Texas for short third down conversions. They went 10 of 15 on third down. Highly impressive. Hudson Card played very well. Calm and cool all day. Never made like massive explosive plays, but throughout the day he was very good at converting, getting the ball to his playmakers. Didn't turn the ball over. Very good game from Hudson Card. He's the future at Texas. Louisiana has nothing. They have nothing to hang their head down about, though. This is a really good football team. Just the matchup against Texas wasn't very good against the veteran secondary. It's going to be hard for Lewis in this passing attack. It's went down since Lewis's big year 2 years ago. They were not very good last year, and this year it was hard to expect them to get back to that form in 2019. So a very good Louisiana team. I like Texas. You can already tell they're changing the culture under Stark. They didn't turn the ball over. Followed the game plan well on offense. They were able to run the ball. That was going to be the game plan all day long. Set up Card to make plays. He didn't have to do too much, and it was all. I thought it was really good. One of the better performances of the day from Texas. I know they only won by a score of 38-18, but still a really good, impressive performance. Because under Tom Herman, it was hard to find performances like this when Herman was the head coach. Looking at some other midday notables, Maryland was able to outlast West Virginia. West Virginia gave up 17 early. In the second and third quarters, they held them in check. This passing attack was not able to get anything going for the most part of the game. After the first, Raheem Jarrett broke free for a 60-yarder in the fourth, and that pretty much put this one away. It was a nice balanced attack. They have Demas, Jarrett. They have some very nice pass catchers for Tagovailoa to work with. Fleet Davis ran for 100+. You flip it to the other side. Letty Brown was really good for West Virginia. The wide receiver stepped and made some plays. Ford Wheaton, Sam James. But 4 turnovers compared to the 0 for Maryland. That was the deciding factor. Jared Dodge had a bad interception late in the game in the end zone. And then I think the touchdown happened the next drive. It was just 4 turnovers, and I can't win like that. I expected a bit of a fall-off from West Virginia, the number 1 passing defense from last year. They lost Drayshawn Miller and Tyke Smith. But over the course of 60 minutes, I figured they might be able to contain them. So I went with West Virginia in this game. But over 60 minutes, no, they couldn't. They were unable to make the plays when they could. Tagovailoa finished with 300+ yards. It was a very good performance. That was very fun. It was a very defensive game for most of the afternoon, despite the score. If you watched it, though, it was really hard for these teams in the second and third quarter to do anything. Very, very fun game to watch, though, back and forth all day long. But Maryland, very exciting offense. I like what they have. Mike Loxley, his knowledge and experience from being at Alabama is carried over. He has got a ball team. I really like what they have. They could scare some teams. You don't want to have to play Maryland this year with this passing attack. Certainly a game that's going to catch people's eyes if Maryland's on your schedule. West Virginia wasn't a bad showing. Just cut down on the turnovers. You only lost by 6, and you turned it over 4 more times than the opposition did. They did a nice job of battling back, though, after getting down early in that game. And their defense was, they gave up 30 points, but after how they started the game, it could have been a lot more. So very nice to see them settle down into the game. Week 1, though, it was one of my favorite games of the day to watch. Number 15, USC 30-7 over San Jose State. The offense didn't really get started until the fourth quarter. It's 13-7 at one point in the third. They got a pick six from Greg Johnson, and their offense was able to manufacture some drives. The defense played really good. It was a tough offense they were playing, but altogether, offense, they didn't really gel together that quickly as expected. Their offensive line was just not very good whatsoever. They're getting pushed back consistently. They had some big runs, so they finished the day with some good runs from their backs. But altogether, the offensive line was just getting pushed back all the time. Slovis constantly had guys in his face. The pocket was collapsed. Runs were stopped right there at the line of scrimmage. So USC had a lot to work on. Despite the win, it was not a pretty performance from its offense, which is its biggest strength. So they have a lot to work on up front and chemistry with pass catchers. Number 8, Cincinnati, Desmond Ridder scores 4 touchdowns as they blow up Miami of Ohio, 49-14. Iowa State, Northern Iowa. Iowa State only wins this one by 6. I wasn't shocked when I mentioned this game to Rowdy when we were previewing Week 1. I was like, can IU win this game? Because a couple years ago they took them to overtime. We were like, yeah, they can win, but we didn't expect them to. This shouldn't happen, though. Iowa State, this shouldn't be a close game. It seems like UNI has their number if they continue to battle them this close. Iowa State, though, I'm not going to hold it against them. They have a big opportunity next week. If they beat Iowa, then everyone's going to forget about it. So, a bit of a staggering performance there, but, it's college football, so it happens. Marshall, 49-7, absolutely blow out Navy. Navy still cannot run the ball. One of their backs had 4 touchdowns for Marshall, though. They were able to just do whatever they wanted all game long. And then you look at Mississippi State. They came back from a 20-point fourth-quarter deficit against LA Tech. They beat them by a point. Another one of those games where it's like, why is this so close? They were 21-point favorites, and they won by a point. LA Tech had an opportunity there, and the field goal was just shy. All around, it was a nice mid-afternoon slate. Very interesting games. There was a lot to keep your eye on. Looking at the big game on the afternoon, Georgia-Clemson. This was a snooze fest, really. 10-3 Georgia. I said Clemson coming into this game at a big disadvantage on its interior offensive line, and Georgia would have success. But I felt like Clemson could neutralize it by getting its backs in the space, Lynn J. Dixon and Will Shipley. But they didn't look to do that one bit. Dixon didn't see the field till the fourth quarter, and his one lone carry made him the leading rusher on the team. He took it for 10 yards. For the day, they had 23 carries, 2 yards. Just an abysmal performance. They didn't try to switch things up whatsoever. I'm very shocked they didn't try to get their speedy, athletic backs outside and they try to spread the field. That's what they needed to do, is try to spread the defense out. And they just, for some reason, elected to play bully ball all day long, and Georgia was going to win that. So DJ couldn't do anything at all. The one pick six, he got baited by Christopher Smith, and he took it to the house, and that ended up being the difference maker. All around, though, good win for Georgia. 2 elite defenses. Georgia's very depleted at wide receiver. They had running backs outside on screens. The offense, Zaire White was efficient, but overall the offense wasn't great. Daniels wasn't effective. 22 of his completions for 130-something yards. I think that was the plan, though. They were going to use these short routes to gain small yards, and I think UGA had plenty of confidence they were going to get these small yard pickups to move the chains, and that's what they were able to do. So, it wasn't really a bad game plan. But, of course, they're going to need to evolve their downfield passing attack to compete for a title, which I'm not too concerned. They're very, very depleted of receiver. When they get those guys back, it's going to be a completely different story. Overall, for Clemson, though, their offensive line was just, as expected, they had a disadvantage. They're going to have to figure out a way to get around that because you've seen it against Ohio State, they were getting bullied, and here again. The Tigers have never really had an elite offensive line under Dabo Swinney, but it's starting to get to that point where you're not going to be able to win championships because they were just dominated all game long by Devontae Wyatt, Jordan Davis. The entire defensive front consistently got there, made it tough on DJ all night. And a lot of people were giving criticism to DJ, and it's really hard to do it when you don't have anybody stepping up. Joseph Nagata made a lot of plays. But other than that, again, this is another team's got to build chemistry with the receivers. It's going to be hard to do, though, if you have people in your face every single play. So that was the story for them. They had that one late drive in the fourth quarter where they got into the red zone and had to settle for a field goal. All around, though, I think if Clemson would have followed that game plan a little bit more and tried to use those backs, they probably had a little bit more success. But 3- and 4-man rushes were getting home with ease, so that's the biggest concern with them. Other than that, it's a really good football team. They can certainly win a national title, but their offensive line's got to be much better. I'm not sure how much they can fix because right now it doesn't seem like there's a lot of upside for them when they play elite teams. So that's going to be the storyline all year, is to see how they progress offensively. I pretty much missed the beat on the UCLA-LSU game. Felt they'd be able to collapse the run game, allow the revamped secondary to do work, And, the pass defense was, well for the most part. They contained DTR, did a lot of evading. But when he completed the ball, they got burned after the catch. 9 completions for 260 yards and 3 scores. Devontae Jones still has a lot of work to do. They're very talented on defense, but they just couldn't tackle. Very bad in space. Again, 260 on just 9 completions is just, they couldn't do anything afterwards. Brenton Brown was 5 away from giving UCLA 200-yard rushers. In the first quarter, they looked pretty good, but after that, LSU, they just couldn't continue to get penetration. They were giving up big runs, big play after big play, kind of like it was last year. Zach Charbonnet had a big-time game. And LSU, they pretty much abandoned the run game. They never made a great attempt to run the ball, even in the first quarter. UCLA, they generated consistent pressure anyways. They allowed a few big plays of their own, had some coverage busts as well. They had one where it was a complete bust, and Max Johnson couldn't put it on his receiver, or he'd still be running. But Johnson, he made some good plays, made some bad ones as well. You've seen a play where he just was about to get sacked and just threw the ball over his head pretty much. You can't be having that. But overall, it was an inconsistent performance, but he made some good plays. He kind of has back against the walls. They weren't trying to run the ball. His defense didn't help him out either, so his receivers dropped a lot of balls as well. UCLA, they were up for the challenge, though. This is a talented LSU roster, as noted. They grinded them down. Keyshawn Bowdy was the only skilled guy who stepped up. He had like 150 yards, 3 scores, so pretty impressive performance from him. But big win for UCLA and Chip Kelly. They have a lot of experience coming back, and they're finally starting to put it together. This is a good win for them. I know LSU was not the greatest team last year, but to be able to play against an SEC team that has this much talent and beat them like that, very impressive stuff from UCLA. And so that's going to wrap it up for the main. Looking at this Cal-Nevada game, the Wolfpack come on the road and win 22-17 in Berkeley. I picked Cal to win this game, thinking there's the veteran secondary, a talented one of Josh Drayton, Elijah Hicks, many others for Cal would be able to step up and play very well against this strong Nevada passing attack. And although Carson Strong had 312 yards on 22 of 39 passing, for the most part, they were pretty solid. They kept this offense one-dimensional. They limited them in the running game. They did very well, I thought, throughout the game. They should have won this game, though. Bill Musgrave, the offensive coordinator, I'm not really sure what his thinking was. The first 2 drives, Cal ran the ball very well. They were up 14-0 early in the first quarter, and then they kind of abandoned it the rest of the game. They got downfield in the fourth quarter for a field goal where they, again, ran the ball pretty well. 153 yards on 27 carries. Damian Moore was very good. I don't know why they went away from the run. Trace Garbers, he made some solid plays, but overall it wasn't very effective. As expected, we didn't think this passing attack would be too great. Offense altogether this year, we don't expect it to be too great. But they ran the ball very well, and they just shied away from it. If they continued to do that, they probably would have won this game. I'm not sure what not sure what his game plan was there after they did so good on the ground. So that allowed Nevada to win this game. The secondary, though, I thought they played very well despite the yardage total. Miles Williams had a very nice interception, came from center field all the way across to the left pylon, right pylon, I guess, if you're looking at it from a certain way. The secondary, very, very, very solid. They were playing a very high-volume attack. That interception prevented them from scoring, so they held their own. And a lot of times in the second half, they had to prevent this offense from going downfield to get the offense back to their ball. So I really enjoyed watching this game. It was fun. Nevada, my pick to win the Mountain West Conference. Carson Strong proved why he's an NFL quarterback prospect. A lot of phenomenal throws. This guy, he's so good. I really like watching him. He's going to be a fun guy to watch all year long. Nevada was another trendy pick. I like the Cal secondary a little bit more. And I feel like they held their own. Again, despite the yardage total, I feel like they did very well. Still kind of mind blown by Cal's game plan on offense after they started the game so well. So we'll see how that progresses throughout the year. A very good game to watch. Both of these teams have some pretty good potential for the year. I really like Nevada. They are going to be in that group of 5 hunt for New Year's Six Bowl. So that's going to be it for that game. Some other notables and just the final thoughts. You had Syracuse. Sean Tucker ran for a career high, 181 yards. They beat Ohio by 20. Very good win from Syracuse. I had Ohio winning that game, so very impressive stuff there. Purdue, 30-21. Jack Plummer, 300-plus yards. He was able to step up. Horvath, he ran for 80-plus, very efficient on the ground as they down Oregon State. Very good game there. Florida beat FAU only 35-14. The QB competition might be up for grabs, though. Emory Jones was not great. 113 yards, 2 picks. Anthony Richardson came back and completed some balls. He also ran for a team-high 160 yards on only 7 carries. And Florida, they ran for 400 yards total. It's nice to see them get the run game going, even if it is against FAU, because that's going to be probably the backbone of this football team. Because a lot of people, including myself, probably expected Jones to carry this team this year, so starting out on the right foot with their running game against FAU. Rutgers scored 61 points, 61-14 over Temple, regardless of opponent. That's very big time for Greg Schiano and this team. I haven't seen Rutgers score that many points in a long time, regardless of opponent. It's very rare when you see them score even 30 or 40. So for them to be able to, they're certainly showing some progress, and it's very impressive to see that. Very excited for what Schiano can do this year with his team. You look at UTSA, they beat Illinois. It's very talented offense. Frank Harris, Sincere McCormick, those guys are really good. Not really a shock there. Army was underdog against Georgia State, and they absolutely blasted them. Still not really. I never understood all week long why they were a underdog. Beat them by 33 points. Vanderbilt lost to 20 by an FCS school. East Tennessee State beat them. Just not really sure what to say about that. And then Texas Tech against Houston. This is a very veteranized secondary. It was nice to see them step up. They had 4 interceptions. Clayton Tune turned it over that many times. They outscored Houston 31-0 in the second half. Tyler Shaw was able to step up. He was efficient. Taj Brooks exploded for 134 and two scores on the ground. But again, it was nice to see that secondary, because that was their biggest knock on this football team. Is their secondary cannot play defense, even though they've had good talent. Adrian Fry, DeMarcus Fields, they had some guys, and they were able to step up and force 4 interceptions. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. We got Ole Miss and Louisville on Monday, Notre Dame and Florida State tonight. Sunday, 7:30 Eastern time. So make sure you tune in to that one. All around an interesting week 1. Some pretty good analysis, I think, was given out. The game picks not exactly on the right end of that, but I think the analysis served pretty well. Hopefully you guys appreciated that. Don't hold my game picks against me too much. Hope you guys tune in next week. Leave a like, subscribe, and see you next time.